Welcome to the Metropolitan Club. It's great to see such a large group of, I've never seen the room this full before. My name's Mindy Wright. I'm a member of the CMC Board of Trustees and director of the Nonprofit Higher Education Alliance, a group that's focused on building partnerships across those sectors. Today, CMC is proud to present our annual forum featuring updates and news of the nonprofit world. Today's forum features the premiere of a study of the economic impact of nonprofits in the community and is sponsored by PNC, Grange, the Columbus Foundation, Schneider Downs, and Kramer and Associates. Each are represented here by many friends and associates. Won't you please help me thank them? So now let's welcome Dan Sharp, Vice President for Community Research and Grants Management at the Columbus Foundation. Dan's going to introduce our forum. Dan?
Thank you, Mindy. The nonprofit sector hasn't seen a crowd this big and exciting since last month's Big Explore. We'll be announcing the record-breaking attendance levels next week, but want to thank each and every one of you who personally and professionally made that such a wonderful civic gift for our community. So thank you. So the Columbus Foundation's pleased to support throughout the year Columbus Metropolitan Club for their mission and hosting community conversations like today. And today is certainly no different. This has been brought together by a wonderful collaboration of partners that worked hard with the research partners. And so I want to extend gratitude to Greater Columbus Arts Council, Experience Columbus, the Human Services Chamber of Franklin County, and the United Way of Central Ohio for their great collaboration on bringing these data points and details to us all today. And we have a fantastic panel sharing their insights and expertise and bringing to life many of the points of data that we'll be discussing today. And so we have directly to my right, COO of Equitas Health, Peggy Anderson. Next to her is President and CEO of HandsOn Central Ohio, Ernest Perry Jr. And President and CEO of Columbus Works, Beth Gifford. And we'll be bringing up Duane Casares to do further conversation, but it's now my pleasure to turn the stage, the podium, and the conversation over to Michael Wilkos, Senior Vice President of Community Impact at the United Way of Central Ohio. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dan, and good afternoon. It was more than a century ago that business tycoon Andrew Carnegie said, quote, "The onus is on philanthropists, nonprofit leaders, and social entrepreneurs to innovate. It is up to them," he said, "to apply new thinking to old problems." Carnegie gave 90% of his fortune to numerous nonprofit and educational institutions. He believed enlightenment was the best remedy for the ills that plagued the human race. Adjusted for inflation, he gave away more than $10 billion. Fast forward to today, the National Council on Nonprofits says the sector embodies the best spirit and values of our nation. Nonprofits protect, feed, heal, shelter, educate, and nurture our bodies and spirits. Nonprofits give shape to our boldest dreams, highest ideals, and noblest causes. They turn our beliefs into action as promoters of democracy, champions of the common good, incubators of innovation, laboratories of leadership, protectors of taxpayers, responders in times of trouble, stimulators of the economy, and weavers of community fabric. Is it any wonder, then, in the State of the Nonprofit Sector study previewed today reveals that 1 in 10 people in Franklin County are drawn to employment in the nonprofit sector? 75,000 of us work every day in Franklin County to bring these values to life. This new report examines 2007 through 2015, the most recent year data was available, and it reveals that the number of nonprofits in Franklin County grew from 7,013 to 8,033, a growth of 14%. As significant as that growth might sound, Franklin County's population grew by 10%, yet the number of people who are economically vulnerable, those earning 200% of the federal poverty level and below, grew at an even faster rate at 20%. Because of the growth of vulnerable people, it may come as no surprise that 70% of the nonprofits in this county focus on health and human service needs. Conversely, just 8% of our nonprofits focus on the arts. Additionally, Franklin County's share of all nonprofits in the state of Ohio grew from 11% to 13%. Not too surprising, because during this period, Franklin County added 128,000 additional residents, while the rest of the state lost 6,000. There are some extremely positive signs of health in our sector. Total revenues grew 39%, from $12.2 to $17 billion, and the local nonprofit sector saw its assets grow 70% during this period, from $8.4 to $14.3 billion. Yet the largest of these nonprofits accounted for a disproportionate share of this asset growth. But the vast majority of nonprofits in Franklin County are very small, and they make up a majority of the employment in the sector. While Franklin County added 1,000 more nonprofits, the rest of Ohio saw the number of nonprofits shrink by 420. This rate translates into a new nonprofit being formed in Franklin County every 3 days. One perspective on the growth of our sector could be that they're responding to the increased need, or perhaps they're creating new ways to serve people, animals, neighborhoods, the environment, and arts. But conversely, this rapid expansion increases the potential for fragmentation, duplication, and less effective service delivery. Many organizations reported feeling siloed and isolated from each other, and they often lack shared goals. The growth of so many additional nonprofits has led to competition for both funding and volunteers, as the expansion of this sector has far surpassed the capacity to serve them all. There is now one nonprofit in Franklin County for every 153 people. But we must be reminded, many of these are entirely volunteer-led and run organizations. Additionally, the study revealed nonprofits recognize the need for moving far beyond the traditional fundraising models and implement new entrepreneurial solutions. Yet too many of them reported a lack of training and guidance to make those solutions work. An additional concern for the sector is low wages. Of the 15 major employment categories, wages in the nonprofit sector are lower than 10 categories and higher than only 4: retail, hospitality, educational services, and general services. It was noted that low wages paid by the sector have often been offset by people who are attracted to nonprofits because they are driven by the mission and their passion to serve. But this dependence over the years on passion-driven individuals may run its course, and it's becoming more difficult as a very tight labor market is drawing young talent to other industries. With this growth, further difficulties exist in fundraising and volunteer recruitment. The most recent benchmarking report commissioned by the Columbus Foundation, which compares us to 22 peer metros, revealed that we ranked 16th in charitable contributions and giving ratio and 13th in volunteerism. If we continue to add 127 nonprofits annually to Franklin County, it will become even harder for nonprofit leaders, staff, and boards to be successful in achieving their mission. In order for us to have a more prosperous community, it's important to have a thriving nonprofit sector. And that means continued innovation, added coordination, higher wages, increased giving, more volunteerism, stronger boards, and attracting young talent. And those are just some of the things that are keeping our nonprofit leaders awake at night. One of those is my friend Duane Casares. The floor is yours.
I think he just said that I'm keeping people awake at night. So we've just heard this report on the fact that there's been a huge increase in nonprofits, yet we know, being in the nonprofit sector, that all the needs are not being met. So in each of your respective areas, I'd like to get your initial reactions to some of the findings from this report.
I will say one of the things that really stood out, and Michael touched on this, is yes, we had the recession that we went through, and I've talked to many nonprofits, and many either closed their doors, they merged with other entities, struggled significantly during that time, had to do a lot of layoffs. And so it's not surprising to me that, it was surprising to me that there were so many more nonprofits in our community. I think it shows to the niche of needs. And so if we have big issues like the opiate crisis, we have in Franklin County a significant increase in our poverty rates, including with the new folks who are coming into the community. You form organizations that, if the current organizations can't serve those, then others pop up to serve those communities and to address those issues. And so I think that the community, the really great thing, one of the great things about the nonprofit community is we try to be flexible. And it was really still, knowing that, astonishing to me how many new nonprofits we have in the community.
You know, I believe that a lot of nonprofit leaders probably know instinctively that a lot of the trends that Michael highlighted are out there, but to hear the numbers is a bit of an eye-opener, particularly as I think about the numbers around compensation for employees in the sector and how we rank only higher than 4 out of 15. You know, I have a great board member from L Brands, Aaron McClendon. He's over there in talent. He always likes to say that it's a war for talent. And I think we all feel that every day. But to understand that we're so challenged in the types of compensation that we can offer to attract good people is a big deal. And I think it's a big deal because a lot of us are being more entrepreneurial. We're doing things that are not traditionally seen as nonprofit work. We need people with different types of skills and fluencies that you would see in the for-profit sector. And we're really competing to hire great people with every other employer in the region. For us specifically at HandsOn, for example, we do a lot of work around technology innovation, and it's very difficult to keep track of the pace of change in that sector, to stay up to speed with the cycles and the rapid innovations. So we rely a lot on partnerships with groups like Nationwide, Ohio State, Sophisticated Systems. They help us mitigate some of the challenge, but there's no substitute for having talented people.
So at Columbus Works, we partner with many employers across Central Ohio from multiple sectors, and there is a war for talent. But I've found, and I was glad to see the data backs up, that in recruiting staff that come with business skills to our nonprofit, being able to compete with an employee value proposition that's more meaningful to their family than just their passion for our cause, has really created some business friction, a more complex business situation inside, because we have a real conviction that the majority of our dollars should go directly to serving the people that we serve. And beyond even the talent acquisition for our own team, career development, continuing to provide to them training opportunities on research and root cause and best practices with world-class leaders. It's expensive, so it does create a complex business situation, but it was good to know I'm not crazy. I am crazy, but it was good to know I'm not crazy and that the data backs it up.
I had, we just posted a new position for one of our departments with Equitas Health, and I had somebody who works high up in the for-profit world message me and say, if only you could afford me, this is the perfect job for me. And I think we, to both of your point, we lose people because as much as they believe in our cause and they'll give to our cause and they'll donate their time and money, it's hard to give up the corporate salary to work for one of us.
That's interesting. We just had a board meeting this morning, as some of my board members are here, and that's one of the discussions we had. So how can we meet those challenges that each of you have in not only hiring good staff, but also retaining them?
So from my perspective, finding other things that are important to them at this season in their life and knowing that we're richer for the time they're with us, but they may not spend an entire career with us, and that's okay. It's knowledge sharing. When folks come, I want people that are smarter than me. I want people who, they just know things I don't know. We just, they are bringing a talent, and I'm very willing to have them for the season that they're able to be there and know that it benefits the organization and creating the best value proposition that we can afford, and maybe in areas other than just compensation.
And what can we do as a community, even outside the nonprofit sector, to assist nonprofits in this goal?
I would love to see the community rally around a couple of things, actually. Rally around a way, particularly for young people or folks who are just going back to school, for some loan assistance with their loans, as long as they work in a nonprofit for a certain period of time. If there could be, other incentives that would help folks who really want to, or maybe not want to, but are okay working in a lower paying job as long as they can get some kind of other benefit or incentive financially, because people still have mouths to feed, they still have their rent to pay or their mortgage to pay. And so if there could be some policy or some regulations or changes around that, I think you'd get a lot of support from the nonprofit community. And I also think just the community and society as a whole understanding that nonprofits are businesses and that we do need to pay fair wages and we do need to have top talent. Because too often charities are, because of the way charities started in the very beginning, everyone assumes we give away our time for free. And we give a lot of time for free because some of us work during certain periods of our careers a whole lot. We certainly are not going to maintain good talent if we work folks to death for not a fair salary. So we have to change the society's thinking about what is a living wage and an appropriate wage for the staff that we hire.
It would also be great to come up with a different way to assess the value created by employees in the sector. It's a pretty straightforward equation in the for-profit world. You look at the bottom line, and if you're generating dollars, you can see it in your paycheck. Our bottom line isn't purely financial. It's a little bit more sophisticated of a concept, and I think if we could come up with a way to assess that better and more comprehensively, we could really get a better sense of who's creating value in the sector and come up with ways to compensate them based on that. That being said, from a community standpoint, we rely heavily on a lot of pro bono and skills-based volunteers to do some of the technical things that we don't have the in-house skills to do. I think there's a huge opportunity for that in the community. We've got tremendous talent across this community at all types of employers that do a lot of great innovative work, particularly in the area of technology and data science, which is growing in this community. And I'd like to see more people get involved and apply their talents and skills in learning to advance nonprofits in ways that are synergistic with what they do every day in their day job.
Ditto. Michael gave us a lot of statistics, and he really is the king of stats, by the way. Are there anything that he presented that surprised you?
There's a bit of uneven growth, I think, in the revenue between the different segments of nonprofits. Our large nonprofits have been continuing to grow, and that's clear in the data that Michael shared. We've got another segment, which is probably our middle market nonprofits. And there's a very complex story to be told there. A lot of those organizations seem to be stable and doing pretty well. And then there are a number of those organizations that are declining. And so I think there's a trend there that warrants some further investigation, and we'll see what that means long term. The largest number of nonprofits, I think, is under $100,000 or something like that, maybe like 40%. I mean, that's huge. These are organizations that start every day, and unfortunately, many of them shutter every day. The challenge with that is potentially the services that they offer in the unique communities that they serve across Franklin County. We've got to always be certain that we're not creating gaps in service because of the rapid opening and closing of small nonprofits.
Do you think that the nonprofit sector is meeting the community's biggest challenges?
I think we're trying. I think that the nonprofit community alone can't meet the biggest challenges in the community. It's going to take all of us. We certainly bring a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills. We are the ones who I think if folks listen to us as a collaborative effort that we could help solve, if not solve, certainly help improve things like poverty in our response to the opiate epidemic. But we are not the only ones that can do that, or can. We have to have, government, public, community members, businesses. It has to be a collaborative effort because we'll just keep chipping away at something that's, worsening in another area if we don't do it together.
I completely agree with Peggy. As we think about the continuum or the value stream, from birth on and the needs of our community and our neighbors, it really does take the entire community, employers, private industry, government, volunteers. It really does take everyone because it's a high-touch business. This is relationships and getting to know folks and understanding where they are uniquely in their journey. And I'm thinking more about human services than some of the other nonprofits. But without the relationship building, it really doesn't change anything. There's no transformation, and that takes multiple organizations and a concerted effort. I like to think about an orchestra and all of the sections coming together at just exactly the right time with just exactly the right input. And we really, I'm seeing a great move towards an orchestration of collaborative effort, and it really, I'm glad to see that. It takes that to see movement.
Has that been the experience across the board? Think about nonprofits, and all of us in the nonprofit world have always heard, you need to collaborate, you need to collaborate. What have you seen over the trends over the past 10 years?
We're seeing stronger collaboration within the sector and also stronger collaboration across sectors. I can think of a number of entities like the Human Service Chamber. I think Thrive is a great collaborative group of leaders who are trying to solve big community problems. The 2-on-1 Community Information Exchange, which is partnering with health sector leaders to try to figure out how do you better manage social determinants of health and achieve community health improvement goals. We've recently started a partnership with Ohio Health, for example, to provide that service directly to the people who are in their footprint. And I think there are more and more efforts like this taking place. So I think that the sector is rising to meet the challenge, and we're recognizing that it's a collective effort. We recognize that we've got to be entrepreneurial and do some unconventional things, and we're open to doing that.
I think, too, this community has been amazing in our belief in jumping, feet first into the social enterprise, options that we all have. Certainly many of us have tried. Many have been successful. A few have been like, okay, that didn't work. Let me try something else. And we have been, as a community, much more open to not every social enterprise is going to work. Not everything you try is going to work. And that's, in business, not everything works. But in nonprofits, historically, we've been scared to try something that had any risk. And this community, including all of our partners, has been really good at helping teach you as a nonprofit how you make some of those risks and those decisions around risk, how you rebound or try something new. And that was empowering for us when we, first tried our first clinic and pharmacy, the amount of folks who were willing to give us feedback. And, thankfully we have a CEO who would really not to make the same mistakes others have made. And so we don't hesitate at all to reach out and ask others for advice. And this community, if I call up, any of the CEOs in the nonprofit community, they are willing to talk me through, give me advice, or point me in a direction. And that's been really appreciated.
Each of you represent a different part of the nonprofit sector. So what is the biggest challenge in your respective areas?
For us, I think I mentioned it's talent. We're becoming more collaborative. We're trying to be more innovative and entrepreneurial. We need, broad skill sets, fluency, the ability to talk to different types of leaders in different industries in ways that we've never done before, to be able to build the future. And that's talent that, everybody in this community wants. And we certainly have unique challenges in terms of compensation to attract and retain and grow it. And the other for us, again, specifically, it's around technology and staying on top of the advancements and changes in that industry, and really being able to do that in a way that's consistent with our mission and continues to add value to the community.
I'll echo those two things. The technology piece, I would also echo that. Just because you're a smaller nonprofit, or even a middle-sized nonprofit, you still have the same technology concerns, the HIPAA concerns, all of the things that large entities have, and a lot less resources. And so trying to figure out how to keep your data safe, keep your people safe, keep your equipment safe is challenging. And then I would also add on, there's a lot of policy, regulation, law, things that we keep an eye on. We're healthcare, so obviously Affordable Care Act, Medicaid expansion, 340B, those are all things that could change things on a dime for us. And so we keep an eye out for all of those things, not just for our own bottom line, but if we have, a bunch more patients who then don't have access to care, what happens community-wide? So those are things that we keep an eye on.
So we're in the workforce space, and as everyone probably knows, there's been a lot of attention given to workforce and workforce training over the decades. So for us, the biggest challenge is looking at best practices and being innovative for things that are highly effective, and measuring them by understanding also what companies are needing, what talent do they need, where are their talent acquisition pain points, and not just the skills that they're looking for today, but what are they going to need in the near term, and how do we make sure we're innovating and delivering a product that produces workers who can retain jobs and move up in their skills and in credentials, and so that the employers are not the employers that are here currently, but so that we attract employers to the area, and that we're able to maintain employers, and learning, if someone goes, why did they go, and how can we impact the labor market. So from my perspective, the difficulty is sort of needing a crystal ball. So as technology changes and what people skills are needed, and then we're working with folks in generational poverty and all of those things. But eliminating poverty means full-time sustained jobs and moving up, and then what do employers need? It is a broad spectrum, and it requires a great deal of business acumen and relationships in multiple industries, and that keeps me up at night.
Yeah, one of the things, if I can add, because of something that Peggy had mentioned, I think in the nonprofit sector, and Ernest touched on it too, the whole IT field is a challenge for all of us. And I think sometimes what some people don't understand is many of us only have one-person IT departments. So to have to incorporate all the new things, which is a challenge for everyone in this room in your businesses, to do that with just one person can become very, very overwhelming. I think it's great that we do have relationships, and I want to mention this because, like, through the chamber, many nonprofits share some of these things and share some of our folks. So just to let the community know at large, there are avenues where we do cooperate quite extensively with each other to assist each other. So as we look forward into the future regarding addressing our community needs, what do you think that looks like for nonprofits and where we need to head?
We're going to have to do rock, paper, scissors, I think.
I don't know what it looks like. I think that's probably part of the thing that, as a sector, we should probably do more work on with the community, is figuring out exactly, what our shared vision for this community is. That includes the work of the nonprofit sector. Clearly define that role as complementary, and to really start to do some serious modeling around what it takes to deliver on that vision. There's a lot of work being done in different pockets toward that goal, we're still looking for, I think, that big table that brings it all together. And if we can do that, I think that would be a great accomplishment for the sector and the community as a whole. And it has to be something that is more than pie in the sky and has to be actionable. It has to be something that we can measure, and it has to be something that's data-driven. And so to that point, relative to the technology question, there's also an opportunity for us to think about how we do better interoperability about all the systems that we've got going on in the sector. I know a number of our peers and colleagues are in the room today. We've probably all done a system migration within the last 12 months, at least one. I think we did 4 last year. And these systems aren't talking to one another in the ways that allow us to do the greatest good for this community. So as we get to this big vision about a community, what it takes to make Central Ohio a great place for every resident, we should also think about how we build the underlying systems that allow us to continue to deliver on that over and over again.
And I would add to Ernest's comments that one of the things that we also enjoy participating with the Human Service Chamber is that it gives us the connections, and I too like to see the next level and the next step of, how do we all talk about at one time in our careers, the one-stop shop and how it's better for the clients that we serve. The reality is none of us provide 100% of what any of our patients and clients need, because if you take on too much, you start to water down your expertise, water down what you're good at, and so we need other people. I mean, we have I'll list my controversial program. We have a needle exchange program. We don't do it alone. We have folks from several of the treatment centers that come out and regularly provide a staff person who can assess someone for treatment that day, who can help with housing, who can get them food. And so it takes all of us, and we do it on the small scale, and I think we can do it on the large scale. We just have to commit to it and, again, be actionable, because we do, across the line, get in trouble when we have these pie-in-the-sky goals.
So one of the things I really enjoy about the Human Services Chamber and also United Way is that their effort in bringing knowledge to us and information and disseminating it to us, bringing us together in a room or in some fashion getting information out to us quickly. In this information age, seconds can make a difference. And so I really appreciate that, because I don't have time to disseminate all the information. And in my view, what nonprofits, and I selfishly do think a lot about my sector, I'm sorry, but I do, and I think we need a disruption, and I only say that because I'm newer into the nonprofit journey than some of my peers, and when I look at it, I think this is exactly the way nonprofits interacted or behaved when my parents were involved. And I just think it's, we have a great opportunity with some brilliant minds in Columbus, and I'm a Columbus girl, so I'm really proud. I think Columbus can be better. I think we can be the best. I think we can be, something other cities want to emulate. And so I think we have great opportunities to do research, to really think in terms of bringing all of the best practices and brains together collaboratively and saying, how do we address root causes, and how do we work on this together, and how do we measure the differences, and how do we really see our neighbors' lives and families' lives changed as a result of that, see gaps close. So that's the rebellious child in me, just looking at how can we be better. Yes.
We're going to move to audience questions here in a minute, so the microphone is over there. Don't be shy. Please step up to it and get ready for it. So we have a collection here of public, private, and nonprofit folks in the room. What message would you want them to hear?
I would say recognizing the value of nonprofits. I think we've shown that we are large employers. We are certainly a significant piece of the fabric of the community. That we have a lot of talent. We'd love to have even more talent if we can afford to get them in the future. And that we should be at the table when it comes to figuring out how to solve some of the societal crises that we are facing now and that we will face in the future.
I would say that the sector is vibrant, it's very diverse, it's growing, and it's growing out of necessity in some degree. This community is exploding, and unfortunately, because of the characteristics of that population growth, we're seeing a commensurate growth in need. there are more organizations that are popping up to try to address the need, and the existing organizations are trying to do more. And it's a real strain, and it's something that this community, I think, has to really wrestle with and solve for. And I think the sector is really at the table as a willing partner to find a shared solution.
So I would share with you something my staff kept saying to me in November, December. They kept saying, Beth, we feel an energy. We can feel motion. We feel a movement forward. This is an exciting time to be in Central Ohio because all of the movement of companies coming and it's really, and the crew staying, there's just a lot of excitement, right? And we can all feel it. In the nonprofit sector, our staffs can feel it. The folks we serve don't necessarily feel it. And so I would say to you, we need all of you all. If you are discovering something new in your industry, share it with nonprofits so that we can share it with your neighbors and our neighbors so that their lives are made better from it. Don't say, oh, they're a nonprofit, they're not going to want to know this. No, we do want to know it. And we would like to know what's in your heads and what's in your research and what's in your think tanks so that at the end of the day, when you go to your car and you're in the parking lot and you see the houses around where you park and you see the neighbors, their lives are made better. So this momentum that we're all feeling, we really are excited and we want to be able to share it across the board.
I've worked in the nonprofit sector for 35 years here in Central Ohio, and it truly is an honor to work alongside so many people who truly care about those that we serve. And all of us, I think, would say it is the people that we serve. We are their servants. We always keep that at the forefront of our minds, so thank you all. It is our tradition to take questions from the audience. Please state your name and ask your question. We need to state that this is not for editorial comments. And let's get started. First question.
Hi, Eddie Pauline with The Ohio State University. Do you have any commentary or feedback on the pipeline or pool of board members for nonprofits and anything that we could be doing to enhance that?
Well, I think one of the things that so there's several things. There are certain times where we really want certain skill sets. Several of us have mentioned when we don't have the expertise or enough of the expertise, we look for that in our board members because not that we want you to work a 40-hour job being a board member, but there's times that we need guidance on here's what you need to hire, or maybe you do need to pay more and get this person on board and you're the best expert. There are other times too where we need diversity. For instance, with us, we are a health center, and so we need to have patients who are on our board. And so how do we prepare those patients? Because there's nothing worse than being in a situation like a board where you don't know how to be on a board. And so how do we educate folks? But I suspect all of us are always looking for engaged board members, those who want to give their expertise, who believe in the cause, who want to be our ambassadors. And it's just a matter of us knowing that you're interested in us.
Yeah, and I think nonprofit boards are probably as diverse as the nonprofit organizations. I mean, different types with different roles. Some want more governing, some want people to bring skills and do more direct work. A lot of it depends on the size and the revenue of the organization. Shameless plug for Mr. Pauline, I am looking for a board member from Ohio State. So we can talk after this.
So I'm just going to sort of be frank. We really need board members who bring skills and knowledge and experience and a passion for our mission, but we don't need board members who just want something on their resume. We just really, honestly, we're a small nonprofit. It is work. I'm just not going to fib. And so having someone who says, I believe in this and I'm passionate about it and I'm willing to give some hours to it is very important.
I think Tom Feeney has always talked about the fact that there are seat fillers, there's resume builders, and there's doers. And nonprofit field needs doers, and they need board members that are committed to support and not just surveillance, and that's huge.
I'm Cookie McIntyre, and our business is recruiting for leadership for nonprofit, not-for-profits, mission and purpose-driven organizations, and we do that nationally. So having the conversations with leaders such as yourself and with boards that we work with very closely to find new CEOs, we've learned a lot about trends and a lot about best practices. The question I have for all of you is how you think about the social enterprises and the social entrepreneurs that are mission-driven, purpose-driven, and for-profit. They are attracting money from PE firms, from other investors, and how do you see that maybe in the future affecting or not affecting your own business?
The social enterprise piece is something that's near and dear to my heart because we've taken that on. We've just dived right into the social entrepreneurial side of what we do. I think that the community is going to be, there's always going to be a mix, and there's always going to be, to an extent, a competition around that. I think there's room for both. I think there are some nonprofits who, depending on their situation, their leaders, their stability, can take on new projects, and then there are some who can't. And so if there is a for-profit company that can come in and still do a lot of good by giving back or, trying to, I think of Jenny's, of course, because they do a lot of local things, and that helps the community. They do living wage, which again helps the community. So I know for us, although I will support my nonprofit peers getting into a social enterprise project first and foremost, because I think we have a lot of expertise and content knowledge, I also know that some of us have some, and we've experienced this. What knowledge gap do we have? So when we first got in, we were really honest with ourselves. Do we have the right finance staff who know how to do healthcare and pharmacy? And some of the answers were no. Do I know enough? I went back at 40 to get a second master's degree in healthcare administration because I didn't want to have to Google everything. I wanted to be able to know some of it. And so how do you figure out some of that talent a for-profit may have naturally and you might not have on the nonprofit side? So I think there's room for both, and we can learn from one another. That was a long way to say that, but.
So I would just add to Peggy, so on another side of my life, I am involved with the social enterprise as well. Columbus Works has multiple employer partners who are social enterprises. So I am very thankful for that. But in my view, not every nonprofit should get into the social enterprise space. It depends on what is their focus, and there's an opportunity cost to switching your focus, right? And so having the business acumen to understand, is this something we should do or is it not? And again, I come back to sort of that analogy around orchestration. And there's a place in the orchestra for social enterprises, and what they bring is huge, but there's also a place for nonprofits that have said, this is who we are, and we're going to stay true to this, because again, it takes the entire orchestra, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm a believer in social enterprise as well, and I agree. I think there's got to be a space for nonprofits to take risk, fail fast, learn, and know when to get out without putting the entire mission at risk. That's a skill set and a discipline that we're learning from you. That being said, I do think that for-profit social enterprises are probably the greatest disruptor coming to the sector. I mean, I think that's the big competition for the sector as we look down the road into the future.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Carol Newcomb, retired and now involved in a number of nonprofits. Beth, you mentioned disruption, I believe. I'd like to hear more about what could be disruptive and what you see in that direction.
Oh, dear. Carol, did you hear me say earlier that I was a rebellious child? I think so much. I'm just going to be honest and tell you, when I moved from private industry to nonprofit, I was just shocked that fundraising and board member acquisition, those things were literally being done the same way that I remember my parents talking about them. And I'm very fortunate in that my parents were very involved in volunteerism and nonprofits in the city my entire life. And I just don't think that's good enough. And, it's a new century. We're in a thought phase, a knowledge phase, so to speak. And I just think we can do better in coming together collaboratively and saying, let's measure what works, let's look for return on investment, and let's invest in what's working, and the data never lies. And let's really understand the metrics around, at what point in time are you getting ROI, what's not working, being agile to delivering services that really move people out of, in my sector, out of poverty, and they stay out of poverty. It's a long walk, but that's the other thing, disrupting the mindset that this is a 12-week thing. It is not a 12-week thing to move a family out of poverty. It is a 3 to 5 years just to earn enough so that you're out at 200% or more of the federal poverty level, 5 to 7 years to learn how to stay out of poverty. It is literally transforming the mind. But many folks who make decisions around which nonprofits receive the investment are still thinking about 12-week programs, or they're still thinking about, I feel like you're doing a good job. Well, I think we ought to apply business principles, lean principles, and really disrupt that and measure efficacy.
Rachel?
Hi, everybody. Rachel Leston, Catholic Social Services. Beth, I'm struck by your comments, especially the most recent ones on how significant it is to make a difference in somebody's life who's grown up in generational poverty. As a nonprofit CEO, I share the challenges you guys put forward about how complicated it is to run a multi-service nonprofit in today's environment. And like you, many of the challenges that I'm facing are related to the very operations of the business. Mm-hmm. But how do we keep our focus on what I think our purpose is, which is about the challenges that the most vulnerable, that the group that was growing the fastest in Michael's statistics, that 20% of people who are living in poverty who are in our community?
Rachel, are you asking me that question?
Any words of wisdom?
I'm glad you got the Rachel question.
When I figured that out, I'm going to write a book, and then, no, I'm kidding. Well, don't laugh. Y'all will laugh. I've drawn a cartoon that's in my office that I can see, and it is something that reminds me of the importance of what I do. I'm not my team, what they're doing right now in our offices and coaching people. And my focus, so all the ancillary stuff has to get done, but my focus is on folks like the young man who came to us, and he had been addicted to opioids. He'd been in prison, so he was re-entering. He broke, all the bridges to his family were gone. They just had said, we've had enough. He came to us. He was in, he was out. He went to Mary Haven, so we're thankful for Mary Haven. They did a great job. And still, listen, when you are involved in the things that come with poverty or drug abuse or incarceration, there literally is a brain science around coming back to working with those folks. There literally is brain damage from the trauma of the drama. And it's been a long walk with him. And he was working, he wasn't working, he was working, he was sustaining. And, we look now, I saw him the other day, I hugged him, he was all cleaned up, he smelled good. And he's working, he makes $18 an hour in a really good job with our social enterprise. That's what keeps me focused. The lady who came to us, the wonderful, courageous woman who came from a shelter with her 6 children, literally she came with her 6 children. Look, I have 4, I don't bring them. She came with her 6, because she had nowhere else to take them. She had fled a situation where she didn't even have paperwork to be able to get childcare. She's working second shift as a trainer somewhere. So whenever ancillary stuff comes up, Rachel, I say no. If it does not mean it's going to impact a life like that, I just say no. And that little cartoon in my office reminds me. Y'all can laugh if you want to, but it's lives. These are real lives. And those 6 kids saw their mom go for training, and they saw their mom work nights, and they saw their mom struggling to get them into safe affordable housing. And that modeling changed their perspective. I just keep that. I'm sorry, I took all our time.
That's great.
For a closing statement, Mindy?
Well, I hope you found today's forum as interesting as I did. Lots of statistics and lots of great stories. So let's thank our sponsors, PNC, Grange, the Columbus Foundation, Schneider Downs, and Kramer and Associates. And our speakers, Ernest Perry Jr., Beth Gifford, Peggy Anderson, Duane Casares, and Michael Wilkos. And thanks to all of you for being here. We look forward to seeing you here next week.